yeah.
And this week on the Weekly Check-In.
Okay, I don't even know how to begin this Kevin Samuels thing. What is he? Who
How
is
many
he?
kids
What
do you
is
have? How many kids do you have?
Who?
How many kids do you have? How old are you?
Oh, that's what he does.
You are not a high quality woman. You want a rich man, and you're not a high quality woman. You want a rich man. You got 2 kids. How much do you make? You make less than $100,000, and you're 34 years old, and you think you should be a millionaire? You think you should have a millionaire? No. This is what he does. He breaks that.
Dame,
You,
Dame,
I was nervous. I was
Dame, you got him down. I mean, you had him down.
Oh my gosh.
So this is what he does,
Damn.
and he's on the opposite spectrum of the Derek Jackson world, right? Where Derek Jackson is for lack of accountability for Black women and wants to support them and uphold them and all their BS. He is on the other side where he wants to break down every Black woman, and he wants to show every Black woman why she isn't worthy of the man that she thinks she wants to deserve, or worthy. Black women shouldn't have standards, like why Black women don't deserve to have standards, basically. And so this is the issue I have with Kevin Samuels and just a lot of these, the Steve Harvey types. I call them Steve Harvey's babies. These are Steve Harvey babies, right? The problem I have with Steve Harvey's babies are, dude, you're not married. You don't even have a successful relationship. How are you the guru? And what has given you the title to be an expert to tell these women what they deserve and what they don't deserve? And just the way he talks to Black women, and just like, it's disgusting. It's really like, it's disgusting the way he talks to Black women. And they say he does the same thing to Black men, which he talks disgusting to some Black men too. But I don't think it's the same thing.
I think
Because-
they started doing that in order to save face.
Me too.
Sorry.
Well, yeah, but Dame, so me and my beau went to visit his grandfather yesterday. And he's from a small town in Alabama, Phoenix City, Alabama. And it's Mother's Day, it's Mother's Day weekend. And so he had pulled out this card he had gotten his late wife. And you could still see like the love and the admiration in his eyes. And he got to talking about her and all this other kind of stuff. And there was something that he said, or he was telling the story, and there was something that he said that just got me. And his thing was, she was a good one. Right. But he understood how to identify what a good one looked like. And my problem, and the reason I know I'm getting old, because I'm like talking like Jesus. I'm talking in parables all the time. That's how I know I'm getting old. Because I always think of a story that makes me remember, right? And
She's
that
30 something, y'all. She ain't old.
I am. But I feel
you
so
an old
old.
soul. You are an old soul, girl.
I just feel so old. But anyway, so what I'm saying though is that when Dave said standard, that's what clicked in my head, is that we are not teaching young men what a standard is or what a standard looks like, right? We have not taught that, right? I get that every Black woman shouldn't get what the next Black woman should get because she may not be bringing the same things to the table. But what we have really done is we haven't really taught Black men how to establish a standard of how to treat a lady, right? We've just said everyone's not. And until they prove themselves that they're down or that they're this or that they're that, then that's when you should go above and beyond for that person. But we haven't set a standard, nor have we taught anybody how to treat a person of worth, right? So my problem with, as Dame calls them, Steve Harvey's babies, is that where's the standard? Right? Where's the standard? Is the standard how much money she makes? Is the standard that she wears natural hair or doesn't wear? Like, where's the standard? So for me, these characters that we're getting on the Derek Jackson, the Kevin's, the spectrum that we're getting to me is because there's a lack of a standard. Where's the standard, right? And the standard, Kaya, to your point that you always make on this show, is the standard is set by the community. And since we've broken down the community, there is no way to actually achieve a standard, right? And so to me, that is at the heart of that. That is why he can be popular. That is why we're spending time and effort and energy to talk about this buffoon of a man, is is because we have no standards. So to me, this is light bulb. I am now of the generation. I'm a millennial. I'm in my 30s. It is my job to help my son and to help other young boys that are coming behind him to create a community that creates a standard again, so they don't listen to these buffoons. Because it is my job to work on that and create a standard so that he, Derek Jackson, whoever else does it, or Derek, whatever his name is, has no value. It is our job now to make it so that these characters of the world have no value and no place in our communities.
And I think what is dangerous about a Kevin Samuel and a Derek Jackson are the fanaticals that follow them and promulgate what it is that they're saying. And it becomes such a toxic, it just becomes such a toxic cycle. And because there's so many things. I honestly, I'm so glad you doing Kevin Samuels is the most Kevin Samuels I've seen. But that was on point. Okay, that was on point. I think I don't know what he says in all, but I do know the high value man is based off of income, right? So
Always,
from what I understand, it's based off of income. I don't understand how anybody who is the direct descendants of slaves, who is direct descendant of a people who were commodified, then bases their relationship on commodification or on money.
But yes, you do, Kaiya. Yes, you understand it. You do understand it, because we have told our kids that the only thing, what makes you valuable is how much money you make. That's what we've done. You do understand it. You get it.
But that is something that is relatively recent. That is something that I don't think we had, because mind you, when emancipation was enacted and Black people began to start moving out of the plantations, the first large initiative was finding their family. People talk about walking across the United States back and forth, looking for lost siblings, husbands, wives, children, so on and so forth. So,
and that's where policing comes from. Just side note, that's where policing comes from. That's where slave patrols come from. It comes from us going to our other plantations, looking for our family members, and then being disruptive because my family member lives on this plantation. I want to take them. They're now a sharecropper on that land and they don't want them to go. And so now I need another force to come in to adjudicate this situation. So I want to be very clear, that's where policing comes from. It comes from that direct action.
So that's an excellent point. And to keep the Black families, and also this is part of keeping this division or keeping this disruption in the Black families, but coming out of that legacy, to be able to pick the person that you want to be with, be it money, be it love, be it whatever, it was such a revolutionary act. When you were forced to even, some people were even forced to have sex and have children with their parents and their brothers and their sisters, right? So when you come out of that legacy, and that is still resonates because, excuse me, traveling and having these conversations, traveling the world, having these conversations with Africans and Indians, and they're in these, what do you call it? Kind of like these arranged marriages, right? And looking at, they're like, oh, love marriages are not necessarily economically helpful, right? But a love marriage is so, to me, center in the terms of what we as Black people look for when we didn't have the opportunity to pick who we loved or to marry who we loved or to mate with who we loved. And another fact is that I'm like looking at this dude, I'm like, there are more baby mamas in the world than there are married women with children. There are more it's a whole bunch of baby daddies in the world. When I was in Africa, real fact, I was in the car with the married man who had about 30, what you would call illegitimate children running after his car, begging for money.
Wow.
But he was legitimate because he was married and he had kids, right? And he was a pastor. He was a Pentecostal pastor.
Of course.
Man, right? So another part of that is that why are the women the ones who are getting deemed and are being shamed for being the single mothers too? All right.
Well, let me speak to that real quick. You made a whole bunch of points, so I want to try to touch on them real quick before we get out of here. But so one of the things when you talked about why are the women ding, I think that goes back to what we were talking about with religion. right? Like even here in Los Angeles, California, in the year of our Lord 2021, if you get pregnant in the Church of God in Christ, the woman has to go up and confess. Even if the man is in the church and the man is the pastor who got her pregnant, he don't get excommunicated. The woman does. The man gets no punishment. The man gets no backlash, anything. So that's a big piece and a big part of that. And then when you talk about the way we look at male and female relationships, I think one of the things is the definition of provider has changed so much since our parents, because now the definition of provider is only being strictly allocated to money. And so Black men have been strictly deemed money, and Black women have been strictly deemed body. So it's almost like now everything is looked at exchange of money for sex. If you don't have money, you won't get sex. And if I don't give up sex, I won't get big money. And when my parents were coming up, I think provider was more, yes, it was financial, but it was also spiritual. It was also love. It was also like provider was for all of these other encompassing things that I think, and it's to Dr. Sharice's point about not teaching that standard has not remained the same when it comes to provider. So now you have these people with this warped definition of what a provider is and what a provider looked like, and people talking about this imaginary table all the time and who brings what to the table. So because it's been warped into that, and this also goes on the heels of women starting to work more and women not having to depend on men to provide for all financial necessities. But even my parents both work. So it wasn't about
Black women always work. Shit, we came out them damn fields.
Exactly. Black women always. So providing wasn't always the way, I guess you would say, the white definition of providing.
I just finished teaching a class at Occidental as an adjunct professor called Women of Color Feminism. And I explained that the power that white women had, or that women have, period, is power over their reproductive organs, being able to reproduce. But what happens is that power is usurped, or that is changed once it gets into a family dynamic. And as Kaya has said, Black women have always had to work in the family dynamic. So this idea of provider in the Black woman's sense is very different from provider in a white woman's sense, because a Black woman has always had to work and often has been the economic fortress for the family, because the Black man could not keep a job because of white supremacy and of how volatile that is. So when we're talking about this premise of Kevin, what is his man's last name? Kevin Samuels, this foolishness that he's talking about, it's not even connected to our reality of how we've maturated. That is why, for me, I've already said I'm not going to marry just to marry. If I'm not in love, I'm not doing it, because for me, I don't need it as the economic balance. I don't need it as a fortress. I don't need it for those things. If I can't get the provider and the fulfillment out of the other areas that are necessary, then to me, I do my ancestors a disservice in marrying. Because if he can't provide these other things, right, the spiritual guidance, the mental stability, the love, if he can't provide those things, then what am I doing it for? And so for me, we have equated, like Kaya said, and Dame, as you have said, we've equated this relationship, or these relationships, and especially in the Black dynamic to the dollar. It all comes down to the money and who's bringing it, who's not, who's getting it and who's not, and who gets to control it. And to me, marriage is far bigger than that, and it's far more deeper than that. So these clowns that people are taking advice from, to me, are just illegitimate all the way around.
And these are some really good points. It just kind of makes me think of like when I go south, or when somebody comes into, somebody's dating and somebody's introducing, their bae to the family. The questions that the family members ask have everything to do with, are they morally sound? Are they culturally sound? Are they not psycho? Like, where he from? Where his people from?
Kaya, to your point, I just met John's family, right? Those were the questions they weren't asking about. Those were exactly the questions. The idea, well, we wish his grandmother was here because we wish you would have been able to meet his grandmother, right? Those were the questions. The questions weren't, how much money do you make? Do you have a house? Do you have
like
a
everybody
car?
know we Black?
Those weren't the questions. The first question is, Mama asked me, well, where do you go to church? Or who do you? What's your spiritual? What's your spiritual your undergirding. Where your people from? Your last name Nelson. I think I got some cousins down here that's Nelson. Like those were the questions, right? But we got to bring back that standard, Kaia. That's not the standard that our children are seeing on social media. We see in Derek and Kevin. That's what we see.
Right. Because the European concept of building a nation is through economic and might, right? Military and economics. When clearly ours is about building networks, cultures, systems, families, right? And moral, ethical foundations, right? So I think this is important, but in the age, in the age in which we are, which everything is commodified, one of the things that, because we have to hold ourselves accountable from getting away, because I think like, the 80s on, and even, a lot of things culturally in terms of like hip hop, and how hip hop became like this ultra hyper capitalistic thing, right? And everything became, I'm doing this so I can have a lot of money. It wasn't, for the love of it, for I'm good, or whatever it is, right? So we've got to hold ourselves accountable in that. We have got to figure out and implement a way. I don't know if it's even necessary to get back, because there were a lot of complications in terms of like our family, because it was a whole bunch of assholes beating on women, that were my grandmother's age. And they talk about that in marriages that women didn't want, and babies that women didn't want, and men didn't want, right? So we have got to do something for our children, because I'm very nervous about what dating and courtship looks like post-pandemic, post-apocalyptic. I don't know what you want to call this.
Well, we have to show them something different. Basically, we have to show them something different. Like Kaia, I met your mom in high school, and we as high schoolers looked at your mom and dad like, that's dope. You know what I'm saying? We saw something different. Want to
hear my version? No.
Yeah, right. But and even with my parents, right? Like a lot of my friends everybody ended up at my house. My dad was everybody's dad. You know what I mean? My mom is everybody's mom. So they were able to see something different. So now some of my friends have modeled their marriages off of my dad, and because they didn't have that, so they saw something different. So because they were showing something different, they were able to behave different. So
yeah, no, that's important. And what that looks like, and not only show, but also provide spaces for courtship to happen. That is so important. Like,
Kaia, that's you took the words out of my mouth.
Okay,
that's
all right,
what it is. Sorry, I didn't, but
no,
that's what it is. I feel like we in our communities, we are not fostering places for our kids to court. We tell them, keep your skirt down, do this, do that, don't do this, don't. But we have not created spaces for them to court. At 13, you should be having little boys and little girls over your house so that you can show them this is appropriate, right? No, but you should have them, because as the parent, you should be teaching them how to court. Oh, I don't like when he did this. This is unacceptable. You don't have to accept that. There's another little boy out there that. Do you understand what I'm saying? To me, the showing them means bringing them into the process and creating the spaces for them to see it, not just act it out on an everyday basis, but bring them into the home where you have a double date night with your kid's little friend. They 13, okay, you can have them over for dinner. We're all gonna sit down and let's talk. Those are the type of things that I feel like we have to do post this pandemic to retrain them and to create these spaces. I think you've hit the nail on the head about the creation of spaces, because that's how you stop them from engaging in sex and all these things too early, because they're looking and searching for things that their body is calling out. But if you bring it to the forefront and have a healthy conversation, then the expectation is set. Then they understand what's expected of them. They understand what's expected of that relationship and the responsibility of what then sex brings and courtship brings and everything else. We've objectified all of it. And without sitting down in the process of it, we're just going to continue to repeat it.
Yeah, those are some good points. Those are some really good points, and even spaces for, I think, our kids to socialize outside of school or whatever religious background they have, where they could have a party. It's not even about, in my opinion, like at 13, I was like, at 13, I remember a boy liked me, and and one of my teachers had said it to my dad, oh, and maybe she needs a boyfriend. My father damn near tore that school up from front to back. He was like, you don't need no damn boyfriend, right? But I think what it is you're saying is that when children are curious about relationships, it be done in a way that cultivates healthy interactions instead of doing it in the secret, in the dark, and all these things happen. But we just don't have social hours anymore. Or like things like, I remember my mom would tell me, you know, her growing up, like she would have, my mother used to play the piano, and you know, she would play the piano, and you know, the boys from the neighborhood and the girls would come and listen to her play, and they would have cake or whatever it is and things like that. But also even making kids who are not even interested in that. Okay, it's fine, you're not interested in it, but you still got to socialize. You still got to get out of the house and interact with your, you know, with your kind. So I mean,
and get off those devices, and get off those devices, right? All of this, you know, I hate it. We'll go out to dinner and I'll see people with their device in their hand. I mean, you're at dinner with the person. Why do you need your phone in your hand to talk to somebody else when the person that you at dinner with is right there? So you're right, that connectedness we have lost. And I just think that is, you know, it's so detrimental, which allows for a Kevin and a Derek to even have a voice, because there's nothing that combats that, because there's no one-on-one interactions that are happening that are combating that. That's why when you said that the creation of space is necessary, right, that to me is the nail on the head.
And let me just say this, you said cell phones. There's even in my opinion, there's a sexual education triage that needs to be implemented, because I'm not on social media heavy like that. And I remember when I started, you know, for Arc Republic, I started, you know, using Twitter. The amount of porn that I saw threading through Twitter, I didn't see that. And these kids at 8, 7, whatever, who have access are being exposed to this. And so all of these, to me, unhealthy, you know, ideas around sex and body and courtship and relationship have been normalized. And so you have a lot of kids looking for validation through social media, right? And having conversations and these like relationships with adults, right? The pedophilia is off the chain. You know, and also hold these adults accountable, in my opinion, who are exposing their relationship, the intimacies of the relationship with their kids. Your kid don't need to know if you sexting your boyfriend. You know what I'm saying? Like they don't need to see you booty popping in front of the Zoom for your bae. Like that's not, no, we cannot do that. All right, maybe I'm getting a prudish and old, but yeah, okay, that was it.
Well, yeah, and I don't want to die on y'all, so I'm gonna go because I don't want my phone to die on y'all before I go. But Kaya, all those are excellent points, and I just feel like, you know, the work is not to be talked about. The work is for us to do, right? Like that's the thing I've been thinking about consciously. How do I, right? I used to be, you know, when I get grown, I'm gonna do. When I get grown, well, I'm grown now, so what are you gonna do? Right. Mm-hmm. And so these types of conversations just continuously get me in the mindset of making sure I'm the example of what I said I wanted to be when I grew up.
And we have to do a better job. We have to do a better job of helping our boys and girls not have to seek validation from the Derek Jackson and Kevin Samuel types. That is on us as a community, as parents, as teachers, leaders. That is on us to help them to not need that validation.
And I do believe in a good popping that ass and popping that pussy, just not in front of your kids on the Zoom. That's it.
Right.
If you want to see good news, you don't see on regular TV. From another perspective, something relative to your needs.